I know, right? 2 videos in 2 days. Yeah, but I have to get this off my chest. So, yesterday's video, now I was talking about the shooting in Danforth and John Tory's boneheaded comments. I think that was the title of my video. Well, today, because government is so efficient when it has an agenda, the news has just been released, I guess it came in last night, that the Toronto government passed a measure by 41-4 to ban the sale of guns and ammunition in the city of Toronto. Yep, that's right. People who have absolutely nothing to do with the shooting are now being penalized. Now have to go out to Barrie or to Vaughan Mills to buy their ammunition, to buy their guns. What was tabled in the legislation has even more bothersome, irksome details. So, I think it was Councillor Joe Cressy, I think his name is. He's the guy who tabled this legislation, and once again, it passed 41-4. In the legislation, it stated, in addition to banning the sale of handguns and ammunition in the city of Toronto, it wants to empower police to go and inspect local gun shops, or not gun shops, gun clubs in the city of Toronto to make sure they're operating legally. That's not the Toronto Police Service's jurisdiction, asshat. That's the federal government under the RCMP. The CFO is meant to do inspections of these clubs, and they do it yearly. Because my club was just inspected. They do it yearly, pretty much on the same anniversary date every year. What's more, in the legislation, he also made mention that they want to investigate the possibility of purchasing local gun clubs and repurposing them. Remember when I was talking about property rights? Yeah. People who've gotten together, raised funds to start a club, completely legally operating club in the city of Toronto, now are in threat of losing that club because a bunch of virtue signaling local city councillors want to close them down because they're afraid of guns. And repurposing them, they don't talk about how they're going to repurpose them. I imagine it'll be to turn them into community centers, you know, and so that youth can come and play basketball and ringette and have a place to get off the streets so they're not exposed to drugs and gang violence. Some shit like that. Or, you know, maybe they'll turn it into, you know, refugee housing, since Toronto's bearing the brunt of the refugee crisis created by Justin Trudeau's virtue signaling tweets. Tell you, folks, get your CNC machines, get your 3D printers, and start printing yourself and milling yourself some guns, because at this rate it won't be long with C-71, with what John Tory and the Toronto City Councillors are trying to do. They basically want to turn Toronto into Chicago so that people have a hard time getting the guns, getting the ammunition they can to defend their homes, and basically turn the law-abiding citizenry into victims of criminal gangs. Ridiculous. Never let a good controversy or tragedy go to waste. If there's something you can make political hay out of, by all means do it. And, you know, 2 people dead, 13 injured on the Danforth, that's a perfect opportunity to table some gun control legislation. What bothers me about it is that the sheer arrogance of the city councillors, thinking that this has anything to do with them in terms of their jurisdiction. You can't empower the police to just go and randomly search privately operating clubs to make sure they're operating legally. With regards to an industry and and a body of legislation that has nothing to do with the local police. Like I said, it's handled by the CFO. It's handled by the RCMP. Not that I think the RCMP is, an awesome organization when it comes to the gun legislation. They're basically I don't want to say Gestapo, but they're an organization that doesn't have any parliamentary oversight. They have fiat powers when it comes to the designation of firearms. They can just simply decide tomorrow that a certain firearm is illegal if they want. Hell, they could decide tomorrow that all handguns are illegal and that everybody who owns a handgun is now a criminal and they need to turn them in, else face prosecution. This is within the purview of the RCMP. And people wonder why I'm a libertarian. Maybe because I go off half-cocked. Excuse the pun. Maybe because I hear and see what politicians are doing, and I can't help but imagine the most extreme scenario. I automatically do the A to B to Z thinking of what's going to happen when this legislation passes. And that's why I say John Tory and those 41 city councillors want to turn Toronto into Chicago, where criminals will run rampant, people won't have the ability to protect themselves, and the murder rate's just going to go up. But John Tory doesn't care. Those councillors don't care. They don't live in Toronto. They don't live in the inner city. They live in gated communities. They live in the suburbs. They live outside of where all the problems are. So why the fuck should they care if crime spikes? Now, I don't believe that they think crime will spike, but all they have to do is look to their neighbors to the south and find that in every city where they've instituted gun control measures, where they've tried to restrict the citizens' ability to protect themselves by passing ordinances preventing people from carrying, preventing people from owning certain handguns, crime only climbs because, say it with me, criminals don't care about law. They don't obey the law in the first place. What do you think passing these laws is going to do? It's only going to affect the people who are already obeying the laws. Anyway, I don't even live in Toronto. I don't know why I'm so upset about it. I guess I'm upset about it because if Toronto can get this done, then my town can get it done too. There was a bank robbery, literally hundreds of meters from where I live. Less than a kilometer from where I live, there was a bank robbery last night. Yesterday afternoon, I should say. Now, my understanding is no gun was presented, no gun was visible. My guess is the guy came in with a note and said, "I have a gun, give me money." And of course, because they're insured up the ass, they complied, which of course they should. Nobody needs to die because some tweaker wants to get a few bucks in his pocket so he can go and buy more drugs, which is probably exactly the reason for the robbery. In a moment of clarity, he had this bright idea to write a note and walk it to the TD Bank. But the point is, as crime increases in the surrounding areas, as this spills out because of ineffective measures made by politicians, as this spills out into the bedroom communities of Toronto, the local town councillors in those cities are going to say, well, what can we do? I know. Let's restrict gun ownership in this town. Let's close all gun shops in this town. Let's look into the local gun club, of which I'm a member, and make sure that they're operating legally, even though they were just inspected. And then maybe think about buying their gun club and closing it down and repurposing it for a community center or some other shit. This is what happens Politicians automatically have it in their head that they're meant to be our nannies. They're meant to be our stewards. They're not. They're meant to enact laws to protect our rights and protect us. And I know they think that measures like this will protect the citizens. It won't. It won't. It's the equivalent of duck and cover. It's making them feel good, and it's making people feel, who aren't informed on the issue, making them feel as though their politicians are doing something. Well, they're not doing anything effective. And pisses me off to no end. And I'm sorry for shouting, but I'm a little animated by this issue. And again, like I said, the laws passed in Toronto don't affect me directly, but they will. Because I don't predict that our city councilors are any brighter or any more wise than the ones in Toronto. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.